am intelligent and creative. I am bold and determined. I rely on teamwork, and I am accountable. I am a competitor who will defend my territory.
Carleton University acknowledges the location of its campus on the traditional unceded territories of the Algonquin Nation. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Trevor Lewis. Welcome to the Thursday Night Live, the entrepreneurial power of business and sport. And could there be a more apropos moment in the yearly sports calendar to be speaking about the convergence or collision of business and sport the second week of February 2022 with the NHL All-Star game in the tank, the Soccer World Cup qualifying for Qatar. The Raptors are in flight. The catchers and pitchers are reporting to the MLB, to the Grapefruit League. We've got the Beijing Olympics with no less than 4 Olympians and Paralympians from Carleton participating. And the greatest spectacle of sport and business of the yearly calendar being the Super Bowl Sunday, this coming Sunday, Super Bowl 56, which is, in the business and entrepreneurial sport world, the coming out party for so many brands and athletes. So we're right in the thick of things. It's a great time for this conversation. And closer to home, I'll welcome in Jennifer Brenning, the Assistant Vice President of Recreation and Athletics at Carleton. Jennifer, welcome to your 10th appearance in the Thursday Night Live.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Trevor. Yeah, it's great to be here, and thank you for joining us for Thursday Night Live.
Great. And there's a ton happening in OUA sports. I feel like we just had Groundhog Day. We're having it again. We had this conversation last year. We're returning. There's a lot to talk about this week, and I'll turn it over to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Again, thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening for Thursday Night Live. It's been a roller coaster of shutting down and reopening for almost 2 years. It's hard to believe. I think this is the 4th time we've reopened over the pandemic. So an incredible roller coaster, as I'm sure you've all experienced. As you know, we were fully operational in the fall at reduced capacity with the COVID restrictions, but we were able to deliver quite a fall semester with a wonderful event with the National Soccer Championship, and our men lost in penalty kicks in that gold medal match with a very ruckus crowd. And shortly after that, December 21st, we shut down again. And so we were able to reopen on January 31st with reduced capacity, but our varsity athletes were able to return to train. So we're really excited to be back. It's been a tough couple of years, and we're hoping that moving forward, we won't have another shutdown. We're launching our full summer camp program registration on February 15th, so we're planning and moving ahead. In terms of the university, it's been slowly returning. There's been in-learning classes back as of February 7th, and a plan to be fully back by May 1st of all faculty and staff. And certainly the university is looking at a normal return to classes in September 2022. So we're hoping for a full season and regular varsity sport back in 22-23. In terms of varsity sport, it's been very challenging on our student athletes and coaches, as you can appreciate. Ontario was not able to get back in January like the Canada West. Canada West was allowed to begin participation in January. And so certainly Ontario, we were waiting to see if we can come back to play. And we are able to do that as of this weekend. So our basketball teams are on the road. They actually head to Sudbury this evening to take on Laurentian over the next couple of days. And because our men's team, hockey team, and our women's hockey team play in Quebec, they're a little bit later. The Quebec province is just easing their restrictions now. So our men's team will start next weekend. They play Concordia on February 18th. And our women's hockey program is also starting next weekend. So it's been very tricky to bring back sport this time around. Youth sport also had to move all their national championships to later March. So you'll see the youth sport basketball, youth sport hockey, all of the youth sport championships have moved to the end of March. So the last weekend of March, to allow conferences to get their regular season games in, as many as they can, and the playoffs. So that was really good news that youth sport was able to move those events. And unfortunately, we won't be able to have fans when we get back in the Ravens Nest next weekend or in the hockey rink. We're still under some COVID restrictions in Ontario, but we're hoping as of February 21st, with the easing of the provincial restrictions that allow 50% capacity in our venue, that we can come back and have fans back cheering on the Ravens. So that's the plan. But in the meantime, please catch the action on OUA TV. All of the games will be broadcast. So on a final note, as a reminder that we did circulate a call for nominations for our 2022 Hall of Fame. We recognize our great graduates in the fall of 2022, and we hope to have that as an in-person event as part of Throwback, our homecoming weekend. And so please look at goravens.ca and nominate a great grad for the 2022 Hall of Fame. So Trevor, it's been a crazy, crazy time here in athletics. It's been very challenging from a business perspective. And I know the sport industry across the country has been affected and impacted significantly, and we have as well. But we're really excited to be back and operational. So I'll turn this back over to you.
Thank you once again, Jennifer. And you said the rubber hits the road on the OUA. You meant it. They're out on the road tonight, wheels up for the Ravens, which is super exciting. And nobody's more excited than us and Ravens fans to get back at it here. So big time, long time Ravens fan and player, Jeff Morris, and MC for the Thursday Night Live is next on deck with me. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Trevor, and great to be back.
You know, getting to know Jeff, you and I getting to know a lot of the alumni last year. We had 40 to 50 people on this show last year. The golf tournaments, the Ravens golf tournaments this summer, we got to know so many people. And I was overwhelmed by the business success that people are enjoying. Previous athletes are enjoying success in the business arena. And it really begged the question, and we had this conversation about, does sport training build that entrepreneurial spirit? They have that compete level, that drive to succeed, that self-motivation piece. And I thought you would be a good person to talk to, because you were the all-time leading scorer for football at one point with Ravens in the 80s, and then went on to an illustrious sports career in America. And I just like to know what your take is, and tell us a little bit about yourself, because last year we didn't even get a chance to know you.
Well, I love the topic of entrepreneurial power in business and sport, because when I was in my fifth year, that's the year that, while the season was on, my father and I launched a company that I still own and operate now. It's a media and newspaper publishing company, but of course it's diversified quite a bit. But being an athlete, trying to get that done, going to school, working full time in a new business, and preparing for pro tryouts was there was a lot on my plate, but it was all good. And you obviously, you talk about the obvious. When you're a student athlete, you learn about teamwork, you learn about leadership, commitment, sort of all of those skills. But there's always some things that people don't realize, and one of them is trust. You have to develop when you're in a team sport, especially like football. You have to develop the ability to trust everybody around you that they're going to do your job, and you also have to hold yourself accountable that others can trust you. Nothing works if nobody trusts anybody when you're on the field. And the other thing is probably the most important thing is you can't be afraid of failure. You have to take risks. You have to try. You have to trust yourself. If you're gripped by fear of failure, you're not going to make it. You have to be willing to put that aside. And whatever you do in business, whatever you do in life, whatever you do in sports, and the risks you take have to be calculated. But you have to prepare yourself and have confidence in yourself. And if you fail, you hit the reset button. You learn from your mistakes. You correct them, and you keep going. And I think that's the most valuable lesson I learned as a student athlete at Carleton.
Yeah, and it's that stick-to-itness that we spoke about, and the getting the sweat equity, getting self-motivating yourself that you had to do in the business world as well. So tell us a little bit about what you got up to in the U.S. I know you were involved in a bunch of ventures there. We're certainly interested to know about that too.
I know you mentioned the Super Bowl and everything going on. I was lucky enough to work at 5 Super Bowls, and I worked in. I was a journalism student. I transitioned into a sports journalist, and then from there it sort of segued into marketing, and I became an expert in the sports collectibles and memorabilia industry, and was hired by a company named Pinnacle. We did $300 million a year in sales in the 90s, and I was hired as a product development and brand manager and marketing guy. So I read Marketing for Dummies on the plane on my way down there. That's but everything you do in business, you learn about marketing, so it wasn't that bad. But I had a great run in sports, and then kept my foot in journalism. I worked as a columnist for ESPN, and stayed in that business for quite a while before when my father passed away. I came back to run the family business. I promised my family it would be 6 months, and then that was 15 years ago. So it's now July 4,812th or something like that of that year. But it's funny. You talk about the Super Bowl and how all the worlds come together and all the brands. It's such a business event because it's where the ultimate brand launches are. And the one Super Bowl I'll never forget was the famous Kurt Warner Rams Titans Super Bowl, and that was, at the time, that was known as the .com Super Bowl, because that was the .com explosion, and every single company that was a .com spent millions of dollars launching their products, and it was a very quick it was a very quick window, and it was interesting. At that time, I had left Pinnacle, and I was working for a company called Shop at Home, which is a home shopping channel in the U.S. And I put together packages for sports memorabilia and autographs, and we would do sell products and have Kobe Bryant's autograph or Tiger Woods' autograph with it, selling these products to sports fans at 3:00 in the morning. And it was a fun job, but you really learned how sports is different in business than other things, because as an emotional connection. You're not buying toothpaste, you're not buying shampoo, you're not buying a necessity. You're buying a connection to your favorite team and athlete, and that's why sports business and sports marketing is so much different than any other business. But the skills you learn coming up as an athlete really help you transition and use those skills and take what you learn in sports and transition it into everyday business.
And I think that's a good segue to our first guest that we're going to bring on here, and is knows a lot about getting knocked down and getting back up, and and having that bootstrap mentality. And our first guest is Brock Patocchio, who is a 2019 grad and was a member of our men's hockey team. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Jeff, to have a few words with Brock.
First of all, Brock, thanks for joining us. And for those of you that don't know, Brock was named by Forbes magazine one of the top 30 entrepreneurs under 30 in America. So did I get the Did I get the wording right on that? Was that the?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Yeah, top 30 under 30 in energy in North America. It's certainly an exciting accolade, and it's an honor, but something that's not necessarily a finish line, more of a starting point, and that's sort of how I treat it.
Well, we're all super proud of you at Carleton for that, and just a fantastic achievement. You grew up in the tri-state area in the States, in Western Connecticut, and how you got to Carleton is an interesting story. You grew up as a hockey player, and what was your journey like getting to Carleton? That's fascinating to me.
It was certainly a journey. I guess growing up in Connecticut, like most hockey players, I went through minor hockey, and then when I graduated high school, I had aspirations to go play at a high level. I didn't necessarily think I was going to the NHL, but my goal essentially was to play at the collegiate or university level in Canada or the US. As most kids who go and play junior hockey, you leave high school and you're on a 3-year journey to try to land on a pro team or land on a NCAA or CIS team. So I began that journey in Oakville, Ontario, moved back to Canada, spent a few seasons playing in the Ontario Hockey League. And to make a very long story short, I wasn't one of these players that had sort of a star-studded hockey career. I was one of these guys that was always, your best 4th or 6th defenseman, but I always managed to make it to that next step. And I think that was through, just pure sort of hard work and determination. And to sort of wrap up the junior career really quickly, I had about 3 weeks left and I didn't have a team to play for. And I like most players, had, an advisor or an agent trying to sell me on going to different teams or saying that they could get me a spot playing on a team, and nothing really seemed to work out. So like I said, I had about 3 weeks left in my career. And I didn't want this experience to go to waste. My friends were moving on in college and university, nearing the end of their degrees and preparing to get a job. And meanwhile, I hadn't even started yet. And so I wanted this experience to pay off in the end. So I decided that I was going to start calling every Division I or CIS coach out there and try to get an opportunity to play and be part of a team. And, I had some really tough experiences with coaches that some hung up the phone on me, and I'd later play against their team, and it was fun beating them, very fun. But I probably called 60 teams, 60 coaches, just saying, hey, I'm a kid looking for an opportunity. And finally, I came across Carleton's team, and I went through the coaching staff, and I saw Gord McLean was the head scout at the time. And I mentioned I grew up in Connecticut, but I was actually born in Burlington. And the funny story is Gord and his family used to babysit me as a kid before I moved to Connecticut. So his number was on the website. I gave him a call, and I essentially said, Gord, there's a voice from the past. It's Brock Batacchio. I'm looking to play for a team. And so he quickly called me back and said, hey, I've been tracking you throughout the years. Let me see what I can do. Well, I'll talk to Marty and I'll get back to you. And in the meantime, I called my agent or my advisor and I told him about this, and he goes, oh, well, Carleton's a really good team. I don't think you're fit to play there. And I laugh now, but at the time, anyway, so Gord calls me back and he goes, Marty wants to speak to you. And so I talked to Marty, he says, come up to Ottawa, come do a visit, and we'll see where things go. So drove up to Ottawa with my dad, came to Carleton, and did a tour of the school. And we sat down after, and Marty said, look, I have my players that I'm recruiting, but I'm willing to give you a shot. And I'll forever, have immense respect for him for doing that. And it's amazing because I was just looking for an opportunity and I finally found one. So essentially I packed up my stuff and I was going to Carleton. I threw it all sort of on the line, and that's how it worked out. And so that, and I went from not a single coach or a team really giving me a shot, no one really picking up the phone, to 1 year later, essentially making the team, playing on the team, and I'm on the plane to a national championship. So it's just, I mean, those are some of the best experiences I've ever had, and ones I hold closely.
Now, your career on the ice was cut short by concussions. That's a bit of a heartbreaker, but at the same time, it pointed your focus more toward academics. You were an engineering student. I think you started at Sprott and then transferred over to engineering, if I got that right. And now you've got this incredible company. And how did the transition go? Like at what point in your academic career did you sort of did the light bulb go off over your head and say, hey, this is something I can do, I want to do this? When did you get locked in on starting this company?
I would say it starts with the end of my career, my hockey career. I only played about a season and a half at Carleton because of concussions. I had a long history of concussions throughout playing, and in my first game playing for Carleton, I suffered a concussion. I was out for half the season, and I came back, and I was playing the best hockey I've ever played. And like I said, we ended up going to a national championship that year. One of the best experiences in my life, and then came back for my second season, and same thing happened. I got 2 concussions in a row right at the beginning of the season, and I was out again for a few months. And at that point, I was always very focused on academic success, outside of sports, and really you can ask anyone I played with. I lived in the library, and so I always knew that hockey wasn't the end state for me, but it was a vehicle to get to somewhere. And so halfway through that second season, I had a meeting with Marty, and he said, "Look, you're lucky at your 12th concussion that you haven't had lasting impacts, and you're not suffering in ways that some of the athletes today are. And it would break me if you did have that one concussion that affected you. Because I think, you're someone that could, go on to do great things, and et cetera." And so that was really the end of hockey for me. And it was devastating. And it was the height of everything I worked for. I achieved my dream of playing at the university level, went to a national championship, did everything, and I was playing the best hockey I ever played, and sort of reinvented myself on the ice, and then all of a sudden it just stops. So at that point, I had to reinvent myself outside of sports, and I had to find a new passion. It was probably I was talking to Trevor about this the other day, and it was one of the greatest lows. But from there, I quickly realized that I had a new passion for fighting climate change, and this is something that was growing throughout the years. I had conversations with friends that would essentially say that climate change is a problem that doesn't exist, or B, that someone or they will one day solve the problem. And the latter never really sat well with me. So I was like, okay, I did try to become a professional athlete, and the probability of success is, one in a few thousand at least. What's the next most ridiculous hard thing I can do? Go fight climate change. So I switched my program from commerce or business to sustainable and renewable energy engineering. And I met my maker in school, that's for sure. It was certainly tough. It was a long and hard road, but it was all worth it. Along the way, though, I realized that I wanted to not only just go work for a company that is in the climate tech or clean tech field and contribute to solving the problem. I wanted to leapfrog to the front of it and really be on the battle lines. And so I realized that was going to be through entrepreneurship. So I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. I come from a family of steel workers and miners, and who are pretty risk averse people. So this is sort of a foreign career path, to say the least. So I needed to know what it was like to be an entrepreneur, and what a day in the life of one is really like. So I signed up for the alumni mentorship program at Carleton, filled out essentially exactly who I wanted to be one day. And they connected me with Mike Callant, and Mike and I, we hit it off. We went through the whole program. I was just, it was drinking from the fire hose every time we spoke about everything, about how to start a company, how to build a team, how to know what to do. So, post program, essentially we continued to meet, and we became great friends. And around the time I was finishing up my degree, Mike was selling off. Mike's a career. I forgot to mention this earlier. Mike's Mike is a serial entrepreneur, and he's built, several successful businesses in the software space. But when we spoke, I really was trying to push him towards climate and doing something, that can make an impact on climate change. So right around the time I was finishing my degree, Mike was exiting his former company, and we decided to team up and go do this thing. So that was sort of the beginning of Planetary Hydrogen, and my exit from Carleton.
That's fantastic, and you actually answered my next 3 or 4 questions there. So that's okay. But Planetary Hydrogen, an incredible company. You're doing lots. Just to wrap it up with one question, I've got to go off the board because you did answer everything I had planned to ask you. But you're going for dinner, and you've got a +1. Are you going to pick Sidney Crosby, or are you going to pick Greta Thunberg?
I'd have to go with Greta. I'm sorry. Sorry, Sid. I mean, that's really someone that's making an impact on the world, and someone that I can learn from her passion, and I think everyone could. So it's I'd have to go with Greta.
Well, that's great. And Brock, thanks for joining us. And again, we talk about all of the skills that we develop as student athletes on this show: grit, determination, hard work, focus, and you're probably the greatest example of this we have seen, in the last generation. So thank you for joining us, and thank you so much, because we really appreciate you really appreciate you coming on with us, and we really hope you stay connected with the program, and because you're going to inspire so many student athletes coming in to fill your shoes. So we really appreciate having you on. So Trevor, we'll throw it back to you, and that was great. Thanks.
That's very kind. I do have to say, and thank you so much for having me on. It's been awesome, and I'd love to give back to the school and in ways that, because the school has helped me so much throughout my journey, and this has been an awesome experience. And thank you again for having me on.
Trevor?
Thanks a lot, Brock. Thanks, Jeff. And yeah, I agree. The personification of the entrepreneurial spirit, real grinder, reinvented himself. Just can't wait to see what you're going to get up to in the next 4, 5, 10, 15 years, Brock. We're eagerly waiting by to see that. Thanks for joining us. So last week, we had a chance to sit down with a couple of other grads who are also making their mark in the business world, from previous athletes at Carleton in the women's hockey team and the men's basketball team. And once we're done that, we're going to come back and we're going to meet with Cheryl and Corey from the Raven Sport Business Club. So stick around and make sure you come back for that. And welcome to Thursday Night Live, Kyle Spencer. Good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. And how are you?
I'm great. Pleasure to join. Thanks for having me.
Before we do a dive into sort of the meat of the program and sort of the entrepreneurial thing that you're getting after here, we definitely want to focus on that. We want to get to know Kyle, the player, a little bit. And for people that don't know you, maybe give us a sense of, when did you first connect with Carleton and the Ravens program?
For sure. I'm born and raised, I guess not born, but raised and lived all my life in Ottawa. I was part of the Guardsman program from, I guess, like age 13, 14, which is now, was the feeder program for Carleton. So kind of engaged with Dave Smart in the program and some of the assistant coaches growing up. So it was a fairly natural transition, I guess, to stay here and play for Carleton. I was with the team from 2008 to 2013. In that period of time, I was fortunate enough, I guess, to win 4 championships. I guess probably notoriously known as the player that started almost all of 4 years, but was pulled off in the shortest amount of time every single game. So probably played the least minutes from every starter, but that was Dave's thing. So he wanted me to go out and get some bruises, bang people up, and stick me on the bench when I made my first defensive mistake, which was all too often.
And it wasn't, they weren't all mistakes. And looking at your stats, over 1,700 points in the time that you were with Carleton between regular play, playoffs, and championships. So definitely wasn't a lot of mistakes. You had a lot of success as well.
Yeah, I mean, as a team, we did pretty well. I can't complain. It was probably some of the best years of my life, and still, nice to see some of those teammates that getting married and stuff, and kind of reconvening and stuff like that. It's probably some of the closest friendships and relationships we've developed, other than immediate family. So that was great.
Yeah, and when you came to Carleton, what was the end goal when you came to Carleton? What were you envisioning in the outset for you as a career path at that point?
I mean, I've always been entrepreneurial, but at the time I almost went to Royal Military College, because I guess following my dad's footsteps. Not a lot of people know that, but fortunately I didn't, because the basketball team is no more, and went to Carleton. I wouldn't say I was too close to going there, but I guess going back from the entrepreneurial side, started a lawn care business when I was 11, and by the time I was going off to university, had built up quite a few customers and some excess spending money. So I got my pilot's license when I was 17, and at the time I thought I wanted to be a pilot. And I guess that's probably why I chose the educational path I did, but never ended up going that way. And by the time I graduated school, I knew I wanted to start a business. And so several factors got to where we are today, but I'm definitely happy doing what I'm doing. And I think it's great is to be able to work with some of my fellow teammates again in the professional setting.
And when we talk about the memories of you as an athlete, what are some of the lessons that you learned being a varsity athlete that maybe contribute to your work ethic or your success today?
I mean, definitely like the team aspect of it. You can't do things yourself if you're ultimately going to be successful. But I'd say for me, it was probably like time management and just work ethic. I didn't really have the luxury of a lot of free time. So, 80 hours a week of my time was either on the court, in the classroom, doing labs, homework, sometimes squeaking some free time to go out or something and be with friends. But I think that's really the aspect that it gives you a bit of an advantage entering the workforce, is that everyone else complains about working 37 and a half hours or 40 hours a week, but when you're used to working 80, you kind of get a head start to your career.
So that was your normal, was these ridiculously long weeks that, obviously it takes to be an entrepreneur. It takes a lot of effort and long days.
For sure. Yeah, and just like the importance to balance like your health, your fitness, and you're going to a 2.5 hour practice after that. It almost seems like a treat to sit in an office chair when I get home and do a lab for 3 hours.
Yeah.
There's nothing relaxing, but life's a bit more normal, I guess, now, but that's definitely something that I used to my advantage the first few years. And I'm sure it wouldn't have been the same if it wasn't for, being engaged in a program like we were. So kudos, I guess, to Dave Smart for all the extra hours and gym times and training sessions. Not really giving us more than about 3 days off, I think, in the calendar year.
Yeah, it's incredible. And, having lived with athletes as a student myself, people don't have any sense, maybe like if they didn't play, just what a commitment it is. And like the weekends and the bus rides and the logistics of it alone, never mind the off hours, the training, and for the students now that are in pandemic, like trying to do that alone. So, you really have to motivate yourself. Get up and get it done.
Definitely. I mean, we had a really good support coaching staff and all that.
Yeah.
But I guess I was fortunate to have some friends too that would help me through school and labs and study sessions. But you could take a week off. You get so far behind that you just you fail a class or something like that. So definitely a testament to the work ethic side of things.
So when you were a player, what kind of a player were you? Were you that tenacious? Getting somebody, were you allowed to not be tenacious? I guess with Dave Smart is sort of the thing. But what kind of a player do you think is more suited to a life as a business leader? Is it that quiet, unassuming, leads by example, or they're the one that's very vocal and out there and trying to encourage the team?
I mean, I wasn't the most talented. I grew early and was 6'6" at 14, 15 years old. So I was always in a forward center role. And so playing in a 4 or 5 position at that height, like it's tall to most people, but there's definitely times I was playing against people 6'10", 7 feet, 260, especially when we go south of the border and play in those games. Like I felt like I should probably be playing the shooting guard position.
Yeah, right.
So I had to rely on being extra aggressive and tenacious in order to earn my time. Not many people, like I always kind of joke, people wanted me on their team only because they didn't want to have me not on. On the other team practice. I wouldn't necessarily win them the drill, but I'd make sure that they don't walk out with bumps and bruises or a cut above their eye. But so I guess that was kind of like me as a player. But I think the biggest thing is the people I see like leaving the sports career and moving on and doing something in the business world, whether it's entrepreneurial or being a rock star employee and moving up in some of larger, more successful organizations. It's just having that chip on your shoulder. You've got to have something to prove and something to get after each day to keep you motivated and that reason to drive forwards and try to accomplish something small, even if every single day you're doing something that will be a building block to continued success moving forward.
Yeah. And I think that's a good segue to talk about what you're doing now. Maybe you can sort of give us some insight into the work that you're doing now and your business enterprise.
For sure. So I actually started another business prior to this. I had a hobby business, I guess, that started out DJing in university, which was kind of like my summer gig, not in clubs, but wedding DJ mostly. And I guess, again, following in footsteps of my older brother who had a business, I started that. Was really successful on the marketing side, I guess. And it was almost by accident that web marketers spawned, because the people I was building business relationships and connections with in the industry started to ask questions and seek insights and help as to what was I doing with the website, search engine optimization, stuff like that. So that's kind of what led to Web Marketers' inception back in 2014. I guess time's passed. It's almost been coming up on like 10 years now. But Web Marketers is basically a digital marketing firm. We work with a lot of small, some medium-sized businesses taking care of their websites, their online marketing, Google Ads, Facebook Ads, and just hope put the top. It depends.
Cool. So, once an athlete, always an athlete is, as we got talking a little bit before the program here, how does this venture stoke your competitive fire, and desire to win every day? Like, how does this, obviously if you're having success here, why do you think that is?
I don't really like losing contracts. And I think people will see that is that, you do the work behind the scenes, the prep, like it's analogous to film, the individual sessions used to have to practice. Like nobody prepped more than the Carleton basketball team did going into a match. And it didn't mean we always won, but we stacked the odds in our favor to have a better team with better sets. I was pretty bad at the memorization of the other team's plans, their sets and stuff. But we would know all their plays and stuff. So I think it's like that aspect of really being able to get a game plan going into scenarios, whether it's, a big sales meeting, a new contract with a new customer, like that competitive edge to always try to do that extra one or two things to stand out. That I feel has definitely helped us get some of the contracts and have some of the success with that.
And you've attracted like-minded individuals by bringing on teammates from the championship teams at Carleton too, and as well as some other athletes that didn't necessarily go to Carleton. So do you target athletes specifically for your business?
Not at the start, really. I guess there's a common understanding of, like, I knew what I was getting in terms of like the perseverance and how hard they work. Tyson is probably our best role model employee right now, all-star player. He started with us about 5 years ago. Didn't really know anything about digital marketing, but I just knew that like my time was well spent working in teaching it. And he's now our COO and basically runs our whole production side and manages around $3 million a year in business really effectively. And I just know if I hand off something to him, he's going to take care of it. And that's that whole team aspect. I guess a lot of our sales team and solutions team now is also athletes. And I think that, you don't really need to micromanage them because they know what they want. Sales is cut and dry, you win or you lose. And I think that it's very conducive to that previous history and just whatnot. They're just successful. Either they are or they aren't, but they take it, they own it, and they, I feel like they've been good on the solution side, but obviously not a fit for every single role in business. So I guess finding where they're useful and we have fun too. So work really hard, but we also take team trips. We've gone away and done events and stuff. And I think that, athletes still like that sense of camaraderie, and your workplace does become your team once you leave the university or professional sports environment and move on to a career. So definitely have fun every day.
If Tyson's proved nothing, he's you dish the rock to him, he's good in the paint. so you don't have to worry about him. He's going to get it done.
He dishes it back to me sometimes if he needs me to go bang something up or cause a ruckus. So we've got a good little partnership at work. So it's great.
Last question for you is, when will you know you've won your next championship, webmarketers.ca? What's the end goal here? How many staff do you have now? Where do you want to see this thing go?
Well, we have 26 full-time staff now, plus about 10 staff that work as contractors overseas. Honestly, I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg. We're winning contracts and growing now at a reasonable rate, but I think we've done really well when we can win any contract and have the best. It's not just about winning a contract, but it's also the fulfillment side of things. So I take great pride in the quality of work we do, the efficiency. If I know we can get a job done at a better price point and better quality than another company because we've got a better team, better efficiencies, and we're competing on a national level for the projects we want. And now I just kind of wanted to beat every other Canadian basketball team and be the best. If I feel like our business is set up at 2-3 years from now to be able to go into any RFP or contract and to have that competitive advantage, knowing I'm not going to win every single time, but if 80% of the time we're able to walk away, then we've got a huge advantage. And I consider that a success to the point where I feel like maybe then we start looking south of the border and growing web marketers into the US or into Europe.
Well, we'll be eagerly sitting on the sidelines as we did when you were Carlton Raven, watching your future success. Kyle Smenjik, thank you very much for joining the show. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right, and our next guest that we have with us is Jordy Kemp, prior athlete with Carlton with the women's hockey team. Jordy, thank you very much for joining us. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
At the beginning of the program, we talked about the many flavors of the entrepreneurial spirit, and your trajectory and angle to this is a little different than Kyle's, but nonetheless requires a lot of bootstrapping, overcoming adversity for you to inspire and innovate others and yourself. We're all entrepreneurial in our own capacity, in our own ways, and the diversity of this topic is interesting. Where Kyle has got a business, all his employees. You're on a little different journey that we're going to get into a little bit. But I think before we do that, similar to Kyle, we want to know, Jordy, the person, and how did you first connect with Carlton? How did you come to be a Ravens hockey player?
Yeah, of course. So I spent most of my teenage years in Ottawa. My family moved from BC, so of course it was just connecting to the university, being a young hockey player in the city, and having two university teams. It was really easy to get involved with Carlton women's hockey as a youth, and so through that and just through I think kind of normal recruiting streams, I built a relationship with Pierre, who's the head coach of the women's team. I didn't actually end up going to Carlton directly when I graduated from high school. I went and played 3 years for a different university in the States, and I finished my undergrad a little faster than I expected, and there was an opportunity for me to pursue a graduate degree in the program that I was really interested in. I was at Carlton, and so I connected with Pierre again. I said, "Hey, remember me? I want to come home and I still want to play hockey." So Pierre was, I was lucky enough that Pierre was open to the idea, and it was kind of contingent on getting into the program, of course. And I was again lucky to get in, and then from there, just worked with Pierre in athletics, and was a graduate transfer, and was set to play 2 of my last years, so my 4th and 5th year with Carlton, and then COVID hit. So I had my final year of hockey with the Ravens back home in Ottawa.
Fantastic. And what did you study when you were at Carlton?
So I did a master's in philanthropy and nonprofit leadership with the School of Public Policy and Administration. A little niche, but like very broad and very, very interesting. So it's actually the only, like Carleton's the only school in Canada to offer that program. I think there's only 2 others in the world that are something super similar. So it was a great opportunity.
So I think that's a really interesting story. Like here, that sort of intimated that to me that you'd been a graduate student playing hockey too, and then Carl and I talked about how difficult it is to balance a school life and a university hockey career, and I can't even imagine what that was like. Having done some graduate work myself, it's a ton of work. Never mind all of the traveling with hockey. What are your memories of that time and trying to balance those priorities?
Definitely challenging is the first word that comes to mind. But I do think part of the challenge I brought on myself, simultaneously while I was playing hockey and doing school. I was working part-time with the OSEG Foundation, which is OSEG here in Ottawa, for Red Blacks, 57s. So I would go to work, I would wake up, study a bit, go to work for, the first half of the day, and then go to practice and study again in the evening. And so it was kind of like clockwork, and it definitely was challenging at the time. And in hindsight, I don't know if I was really my best in every faction that I was participating in. But it was a really eye-opening experience, and I think definitely shaped the way I approach certain aspects of life now. I'm not going to say it makes law school easier, but I know how busy I've been in the past. So now taking my hockey and a part-time job, it's nice to just be able to focus on school.
Yeah, and like Kyle talked about, athletes have this funny way of normalizing these 80-hour weeks, and they really prepared you for, because once we haven't get into that yet, that you're in law school at the moment. We'll talk about that in a second. But, obviously it's renowned for being ridiculously long days. And this is something that you've been trained to do. What was the end goal when you came to Carleton with that program? Is that something that's still part of the future for you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think I was super lucky when I was at Carleton that everything I was doing, despite the fact that it was challenging, I really enjoyed. So it was a bit of a passion project. The program itself, I think, was super fundamental. I didn't necessarily enter it thinking that I was going to go to law school, but I left the program with more questions than answers, and I felt like going to law school to kind of understand the frameworks of the systems that we live in would make me a more impactful leader at whatever my next endeavor was. So I can't really say I entered with an end game. What I did know when I entered Carleton was that I loved playing hockey. I loved going to school, and I wanted to spend my time doing something impactful and relate to community. And so with that in mind, I think my experience during my year and a half at Carleton hit all 3 points.
Yeah, and what's the end goal for you? When you taking that graduate degree, this varsity experience, marrying it with the law, where are you going with this? And the law is a real elbows up environment. People know that you got to be competitive and passionate. So how do you see that playing out for you going forward?
I think if I was to create my ideal career, it would somehow be a blend of corporate social responsibility and sport. So I think I would love to end up in an industry that relates to sport and entertainment. Maybe not practicing law per se, but utilizing my law degree. It is difficult to say. I just finished my first semester, and I feel there's so many ways to do it. So the possibilities right now are almost confusing because there's just so many. But definitely, I think just trying to find a path where I can blend all the little key takeaways from
Yeah. And this is really the crux of your story, and how I feel like it weaves into this entrepreneurial spirit thing is that it's really about Jordy Incorporated, right? It's like you incorporated, right? And you're building your brand, and you're blazing your trail, and going to be obviously a leader no matter where you go. How is it, the jet fuel of being a varsity athlete, helping you so far you find it's very competitive in the law school?
I think one thing that I wasn't surprised about when I came to law school was that everyone kind of had like this A-type personality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like your varsity athletes, they it's like first or nothing. You know what I mean? It's either I A or I failed in this class. So I feel like entering law school with the varsity experience. I mean, I think I'm able to like manage the demands of the curriculum. Yeah. Not necessarily with ease, but I just have like the practical skills from playing sports with allocating my time and my priorities. I think when it comes to the competitive aspect of being with like classmates, but also knowing you're going to be competing for jobs, it's kind of like a strained relationship where, in a sense, they're like your teammates because you help one another with class material projects, things like that. At the same time, they're your opponents. Yeah. So I think transitioning my experience in varsity, and I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm getting kind of philosophical, but
that's good.
No, I think like what I've like brought forward is like my drive to always like do as well as I can and like contribute to like, the overall community in the way that I contribute to like my team's success. While simultaneously, trying not to compare myself to others, but trying to separate myself from the pack. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's notoriously competitive. Yeah, I get what you mean. Like it's co-opetition, we call it, right? So it's inherently a competitive arena, and you're trying to. Sorry. It's not necessarily like a bad thing, competition. Like I think it really helps elevate everyone in the class to contribute and be their best and consistently improve. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it's kind of one of these. It's one of these muscles that you're still working. Because like some of the lawyers that I know and some friends and things, some of the most competitive people I've ever met, like whether they're advocating for a client or they're in a boardroom or a court or wherever it is, tribunal, it's about winning. They're paid to win. And so I'm sure there's part of the law school that is trying to teach people the things that you kind of already sort of inherently know from being a varsity athlete and how to work with the team. How to to turn it on, because like at some point you need to get like I said, get the elbows up, get in there and win.
Yeah, for sure.
So we really look forward to following your journey too. I know you're at the start with the law school. Super excited that you didn't use your last year of eligibility to play for an opposing team. You're rated for life, which is awesome. And thank you very much again, Jordy, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Interviews, and it's just incredible to see these former student athletes, the amount of composure and calm confidence, but underlying killer instinct, obviously, that they have. They're just incredible humans, and the way they're inspiring others, hiring other Carleton students, which is pretty amazing. Jordy didn't get into it, but she was on a scholarship to an NCAA school in St. Louis, Missouri, and then came to Carleton. And she's like, yeah, 80-hour weeks, nothing to it. Do a master's degree at Carleton, be a varsity athlete, and you can just see how she's going to be one to watch and using her superpowers for good once she finishes law school, and we're excited to see that. There's a number of people who joined the program last year that we want to give a shout out to that are making an impact in an entrepreneurial way. And one that is, I think he's, synonymous to with business and success at Carleton University in the past little while, and we're hearing a lot from making a big splash, is Nate Bahar. And Nate works with us quite a bit, and he has launched what's called Firework app, connecting athletes to opportunities, kind of like a virtual agent of sorts. And he's enjoying a lot of success with that. And we're super excited with him, or for him, I should say. And then another gentleman that joined the show this year was Andrew Laddie. And Andrew came on the program and he spoke about his Bench the Barrier initiative. And he's a very interesting guy because he has his finger in a lot of pies. He's a real estate mogul, and he's involved in lots of great things. Another great example is former soccer player at Carleton who's making a huge impact out there. And then and I think for him, what I enjoy about his story is that he's offering that thought leadership space in working in the arena of mental health, which is terrific. And then we have Christian Lanzi. Christian did not join the program last year, but Christian was a swimmer at Carleton who created a company called Radioactive Kickboards. And Christian is, these are some of the boards that he's created. These are just three of them that I kind of ripped from his website, but he also does kickboards and some that he did for our team, as well as paddle boards. And there's a guy who's literally an engineer, an athlete, and is creating a brand new company that's launching in the fall. And there's obviously lots of these people out there, but a few that I wanted to highlight real quick just to show you what they're up to. And now we're going to turn it over to back to Jeff, who's going to talk to the good folks in the Raven Sport Business Club. Jeff.
Thanks, Trevor. And someday I'll get on that list once I invent the microwave, the handy dandy kitchen appliance that instantly freezes things, but I can't figure the science out. So maybe if Brock has a guy, he can hook us up. But, anyway, I wanted to, we've got Cheryl and Corey with us from the Raven Sports Business Club. And I'll tell you, if there was one thing I wish was at Carleton when I was a student athlete, it was this. And it's so cool. And Cheryl, we'll start with you. How did the club get founded and come to be? Because it's just remarkable giving opportunities like this to students. So maybe talk about how it started.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. So when I first started at Carleton, it's almost 10 years ago. And obviously I'm working in the sport business, and I was starting to get approached by a lot of student athletes and just general students that wanted to hear about my career path. Simultaneously, I was noticing that every year I get older and the student athletes and our demographics stay the same age. So I was in search of a bit of a incubator solution. And so we reached out at the time to Sprott. And for the first couple of years, we had a Sprott Sport Business Club. That went very well. And then at the end of the second year, one of the individuals, her name is Lauren Gallant, I can't not shout her out, who was in that club, her and I were talking about how could we expand this outside of Sprott so that it could be for everybody, especially that, Carleton has a lot of amazing programs, but none of them specifically sport oriented for those who might have a career aspirations in that direction. So then in 17-18, we launched the RSBC, which is the Raven Sport Business Club. And so we're just wrapping up our fifth year. So that's kind of how it all started.
And Corey, you're the president of the club, the student president. How did you get involved, and what's your experience been like?
Yeah, so I am very thankful that when being a student at Carleton, this club is available. So I started at Carleton in fall 2019, and I was almost 20 in my first year, so I was a little bit older. So I was walking around the Carleton Expo, just seeing what was available and seeing what clubs were there. And that's where I found the Raven Sport Business Club. And I said, that's for me. I'm going to be in that club. And the experience has been absolutely phenomenal. I can't say one bad thing about it. Everything that we get to do gives us such great opportunities. The experiential learning is really unlike no other. And I'm just so thankful to have been a part of it and now be able to help run it.
And I would think that you've probably gotten to see a lot of different sides of sports. One thing I think of in my experience is I got to have a meeting with Gary Bettman at lunchtime, and then in the evening I was tearing down a trade show booth. So it's like you got the best and the worst all wrapped in one. But what kind of different experiences are you seeing in, especially I guess in event management, because you guys would be involved in all the different things that are going on at the school?
Yeah, for sure. We have 6 kind of, we call them arms of the club. So we have a game day operations, we have content communications, which falls into like content teams that help with like social media content and that type of things. And then we have esports, which is new, and it's really exciting to be able to get to cover that kind of stuff. And we also do a social justice branch as well. And then we also have student engagement, online store, and yeah, I think that's all of them. And so it's just, there's so many opportunities to be able to kind of shape what you want to learn. And, you know, maybe one semester you're on esports and then the next semester you're on game day. We really want to give every student in our club the opportunity to make their experience the best it possibly can. So like for me, I started out on social justice and then I moved into the president role, but I've still been able to help with the game day and help with the content and kind of get my own experience too. And that's what I try to encourage everyone in our club to do as well.
Cheryl, one thing you've got a lot of experience in sports marketing before you came to Carleton, and you know, with my company, I've kept my foot in the door and went through contracts and stayed in professional sports. But the one thing that I find remarkable is that when you look at sports, probably 75 to 80% of the jobs in professional sports now didn't exist a decade ago. And since you've been with the 67s and you know now at Carleton, how have you seen sports business evolve in what you've got, in what you've experienced and gone through?
Well, it's like I fed you that question, Jeff, even though I didn't. But the biggest part I think that has evolved is the marketing aspect. And that has a number of different areas, but certainly when I first began in sport, the people that handled marketing made TV and radio and newspaper buys, and like that was kind of it. There wasn't all this like content calendars and storytelling and organic marketing. Well, there wasn't social media, so I sort of transitioned my own sport background into that area. But I also believe that, accessibility is a big thing. When I was with the 67s, one of the major differentiators that we had in the hockey market then was being accessible. And that's something I think that we have at Carleton, and I think that we're seeing that more in pro leagues. I think one of the transitions I'm finding is the demographic, the 18 to 24 demographic kind of demands more of that. And so it's less, hierarchical between the athlete and the fan. They can speak to each other directly on social media and things like that. So I feel it's some of the barriers have been dissolved, I guess. And that's something else that I notice. And with the Sports Business Club, what I'm finding is students are finding, similar to what Brock was talking about when he was on, is, things are never a straight path. One of the people in our Sports Business Club is an engineering guy. He loves being in the Sports Business Club because he wants to build arenas. So that has nothing to do with what he's experiencing in the Sport Business Club, but I think it would let him understand, bandwidth needs, other type of needs that go on with that. So I think at this point in time, and of course, Corey already touched on esports, which I think is a whole other, well, we've already had a whole show about that evolutionary aspect of sport. But I would say that the marketing side of it, which then impacts the sales, both sponsorship and ticket sales side of it, and even in the event side of it, like, now when you're looking at a scoreboard, it has a Twitter feed or that kind of stuff. It's more like 3-screen, I guess, or it's more 3-dimensional, I guess. It might be a way to say that.
It's funny you mentioned esport, and this isn't esport, but I'll never forget the day I drove onto the Carleton campus, probably 4 or 5 years ago, and students were wandering around the parking lot looking at their iPhones, looking for Pokemon, and it was just like, okay, the world has changed. I'm officially old in that, but you mentioned how marketing and communications has changed. You also, within the sports, you have analytics is a big field. There's a whole industry on DraftKings, fantasy, $2 bet parlay sites. Like, everything is just exploding around sports as peripheral industries. And Corey, when you are looking at sports and hoping to have a career in sports, are you looking at and really analyzing a lot of these peripheral industries and paying close attention to what's going on and sharing that with the people in your club?
Yeah, I know a lot of people in my club, they have a lot of different kind of pathways. For me, my dream is to be a broadcaster. So I do like to focus on that a lot. I like to look at what other people do and what kind of definitely representation of people that look like me as well in terms of women in sport, I think is a big thing that I like to look at. But I try to encourage everyone to stay true to what they want to do and to go for it. It's never I don't know if that will happen, whatever. I'm like, I'll help you do whatever you want to do. So I think we haven't touched on the analytics side of sports and that kind of stuff yet. I haven't had anyone kind of reach out to me about that, but I do like to encourage people to follow their path and to make sure that they're getting as much out of this club as I'm trying to give to them.
Well, that's great. And how I don't know, either one of you, I'm not sure who would answer this, but if people watching the show want to learn more about the club, if alumni want to learn more about the club and maybe how they can contribute to it, or if students want to learn more about the club, how can they be involved? Where should they go? Is there a website, or is there somewhere where they can find out about it?
Yeah, for sure. So we have kind of a couple different options for that. You can always go to the goravens.ca/RSBC, and you'll find that there. If you're just on the Go Ravens site, it is up in clubs, and then you'll find it under Raven Sport Business Club, and there's testimonials on there and all that kind of stuff. And then also it's typically found on our social media accounts as well. So CU Ravens and CU Bird Gang on Instagram. So that one's more maybe geared towards the students if they're looking on social media and stuff like that. And then, but there's lots of great testimonials on the website as well.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. And we really appreciate it. We wish you best of luck in the future. I think you're in good hands under Cheryl, learning about this business, and you got a bright future ahead of you. So thanks very much, and thanks, Cheryl. And Trevor, we'll throw it back to you.
And thank you very much, Jeff, Cheryl, and Corey. Great conversation. I have to say, in wrapping that up, I really admire the way the club is an enabler and enabling students to get a hands-on in the business. And I know that we spoke about a lot of business clubs and at varsity business clubs where they don't actually get to try all of those different roles. And it's a two-way street. It's an incubation process for you two to learn from them and take it in new directions. So, good for you. Good on you for fostering that entrepreneurial spirit within the Ravens. Within the Ravens athletics. One of the things that we don't see, and we talk about the entrepreneurial spirit, is, and anyone who was a student athlete would know that there's a ton that you don't see. And Jeff talked about this a little bit at the outset about the early mornings and those lonely training sessions, but they didn't see like crunching in the snow to the bus stop and waiting for the bus that won't show up and getting to the place and suiting up and doing your training and making a difference and trying to be better in that sweat equity piece of going to school, doing an engineering degree or doing one of the Sprott degrees in management, entrepreneurship, or marketing, or whatever it is. So, the students come from all walks of life at Carleton. But then we have students that are doing all of that. And then we have the ones who are doing the Shoe for the Cure. So I just wanted to give them a little bit of a shout out, because in addition to all of those things, they say, let's do our bit to cure cancer. $50,000, current students. And you can see them, they're strong, they're flexing, they ought to flex because they did a great job. And we just wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to them because, it took in the entrepreneurial spirit for them to make that happen in a pandemic. And, kudos and congratulations.
Can I jump in on that, Trevor?
Yeah,
Can I just
absolutely.
jump in on that? I've mentioned it on the show before, but I do have bone marrow cancer. I'm recovering from a stem cell transplant. And, I can't thank these students enough for doing this and people that contribute to programs like this. Cancer research before I was a patient just seemed like this bottomless bucket where the $20 you might donate doesn't seem like it matters at all. And after kind of going through what I've gone through and the journey and meeting the incredible people and seeing the amazing facilities and the advancements in research that are incredible year by year, I just want to say a heartfelt thank you for everybody involved in that program and to everybody who contributes, because it makes a huge difference and it means a lot to people like me. It may mean a lot to you in the future, or maybe it might mean a lot to loved ones' ears. Cancer doesn't discriminate, and it just shows up one day and turns your life upside down. So a huge shout out to them and as much appreciation as possible. So thank you to everybody.
Well said, Jeff. Thank you for that. And I know we're running over time here, so we're just going to wrap it up. We met a lot of amazing humans, athletes on the program tonight. But we want to give a shout out. The school's 80 years young this year. We've had graduates from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and on. We've had some newer grads here tonight who, all walks of business, construction, the financial industry, winning the business, building the book, advancing the dream, helping social media influencing, like they're getting into everything. And we tip our hats to all of you who have done that over the years and continue to do it. And thank you very much for that nation building work. And for Brock for joining us for your global impact work. You were taking this thing global now, watch out. So this was a great time. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Thanks to all the guests and the people who tuned in tonight. Thanks for being on the Thursday Night Live with us this evening. So long, everyone.